Hello, hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Biztainment Weekly. I am your host, Scott Janney, and thank you so much to Magazine Jukebox for being able to sponsor this. So that way we can keep airing the show. I am super excited about our show today. We have Amber in his house. She's actually here in person. Hello, Amber. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. But before we totally dive into everything about Amber, we are going to go into LinkedIn Moment. And if you don't know what that is, let me tell you, LinkedIn Moment is a very special moment. It is a moment where I pick out some positive posts, talk about them. And what I like to tell everybody, if you don't like positive posts, or if you don't want me talking about your positive posts, don't be my friend. That's how that works. Okay. So Julian, oh man, I always butcher these last names. So Julian Orzuko. I apologize if I got that wrong. But it says, I am happy to share that I'm starting a new position as Director of Physician Services 2 at HCA Healthcare Physician Service Group. Congratulations. That is exciting. We love to see that. And best is yet to come, I'm sure. So congratulations. All right, next awesome post here on LinkedIn. Again, positive post. This came from Sherry Norquist. Pretty sure I got that one right. And Sherry, she posted, this year marks the 27th year with Centera. Every step of my journey has positively contributed to my love and commitment to people and the work that I get to do. I wrapped up this incredible week realizing how thankful I am and all the kind souls that I treasure in this life. It's pretty awesome. It says a little bit more there, but hey, Sherry, 27 years, that's impressive. Most people only do about like 4 years and then they're, peace, we're out. So very cool. And I know Centera has a picture with her next to the Centera Trauma Services table. Looks like it was at a trade show or some show like she was talking about. So, hey, congratulations. Thank you. And they are lucky to have you. So keep doing great work. Again, best is yet to come. But now, most important time of the show, it's about you, Amber Hamilton.
Let's do it.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so Amber drove all the way here from Spain. Pretty amazing.
I wish.
Yeah, I know, right? I probably wouldn't drive here from Spain. I would just be
would.
like, can we do this virtually? That'd be so much better. But Amber is in kind of like in MySpace, not to be confused with MySpace,
Right.
social media site that used to be awesome.
Used to be awesome.
Yeah, Tom. Was his name Tom, I think? Anyways, all right, he's gone. So, but is now a new founder, started up her new company, and it's rocking and rolling, and we want to hear all about it. So I want to make sure I'm not doing any injustice here. So I'm going to let you talk about, because I think you're going through a little bit of a rebrand or something like that.
A little bit, yeah.
So I want you to be able to talk about that and tell us all about who Amber Hamilton is. But before you do that, actually, I just want to say thank you, by the way.
Yeah.
This is actually your second time on the show.
It is my second time on the show.
I think before, our original show was MJB.live.
Yep.
And then we went away from that. So
Yep.
we rebranded.
Yep.
And now it's Biztainment Weekly.
Yep.
Which is pretty awesome.
Really awesome.
Okay, cool. We're on the same page. All right, so tell us, Amber, what's going on with Amber?
Yeah. So the last time I was on the show, I was actually working for a startup. And then I left there last August and had the opportunity to start my own company and launched going one way, thinking I was going to do some consulting for private and independent schools using some resources I had.
Gotcha, yep.
But I am not an education specialist, and so that didn't go very well.
I can see where there's a stumbling block
There's a
there.
little bit of a stumbling block. And I was focusing on their business office, but still, I didn't have the experience that they needed. And so I pretty quickly pivoted. I'd gone out to Boise, Idaho, and gotten this certification.
What is in Boise, Idaho?
Right?
Isn't that potatoes? Isn't that where they do?
Idaho does have a lot of potatoes.
Okay.
Boise is actually an incredible city. I was really surprised. I had never been. I didn't realize how West Coast it was either.
Really?
It's like almost. It's like Boise. Or it's like Idaho, Oregon, or Washington.
Yeah.
Like it's
no,
right
that's
there.
true. Yep.
Um.
For those of you who don't know,
Yeah.
go check out a map.
Yeah. Exactly. I didn't know until I booked the plane ticket. I was like, why is it taking me so long to get
Oh
out
my
there?
This is supposed to be a
I do it.
30-minute flight.
I know. I was like, maybe I did fail seventh grade
Bring me a mocha choca.
Yeah, so no, I had been in contact with a guy that I met during COVID virtually, and he had started a company called Finding Good and had developed a methodology around the science of connection and a certification. So I went out there to get certified and spent the fall, going through that certification. And in January, he actually asked me to come on and help him do sales. And through that, I realized, I've always been in sales and marketing my entire career, and realized I was actually really good at and really enjoyed helping new businesses build their sales operations.
Awesome.
And so I spent the spring kind of testing a few things out with him. We actually doubled his revenue in about 3 months, which was really exciting. And in May, when I left there, I kind of had built out this bit of a process and actually have been doing a 4-part program this summer with the 757 Startup Studios.
What up?
What up?
757 SUS, what's up?
Yes.
We love them over there.
I know, they're amazing. So I was like, you know what? I called up Hunter. I was like, hey, I've got this idea. I'd been mentoring for the Startup Studios all year and had been seeing some consistencies through what founders really needed. And they were great at building a product or service. But then when it came time to really sell it or kind of get that brand out there, that was a big challenge.
Right.
And so we put together this 4-part programming, and I started going, you know what, I think this is really what I love doing, and I have landed a client who is actually with Techstars right now.
Nice. Yep, it's always good to land a client.
Always look great to land a client. So that's what I'm doing now. The rebrand is basically help startups go to market and get their sales operations up and running so they can actually make revenue and do it in a way that allows them to get funding and prove their product or service so they can really have a fighting chance out here in the real world.
Yeah, it's it's tough. People hear me all the time talking about how tough it is being a startup or a founder. You're juggling so many different things. You have to wear so many different hats. Speaking of which, Magazine Jukebox new hats came in.
Great.
But the thing about being a founder and startup is like having people there like yourself that they can rely on, or they can at least in some ways be like a pincushion. Like, hey, I need to put something past you. Tell me what you think, and being able to help them and help them navigate through some of the trenches that they have never experienced before. I meet founders all the time where they talk about like, well, I want to give away 10% of my company, for $100,000, and I'm like, it's not just that simple, And do you, equity is really, really valuable.
Yes.
So especially if you have something, if you have a good idea, it's really valuable. So, so that's awesome. So it's kind of interesting. So you're like starting the business founder, helping startup businesses find their groove.
Yeah.
So that's a mouthful.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride for sure. In my career, it was interesting over the past years. I've kind of figured a lot of this stuff out and looked back at what my career has been. I have happened to serendipitously come in early with companies. Even, I did marketing for Chick-fil-A way early on in my career, like in my mid-20s, but it was a brand new Chick-fil-A, right? Like in the area. And
as if they need any marketing.
As if they need marketing. But I know that wasn't a super challenging marketing push, but it was a new Chick-fil-A in the area, so they did need, to get some work, the word out and things like that. They also, any other company that I've worked for doing any sort of sales and marketing has been early stage. They've been early, new program, or under new ownership. So I ran a couple of bridal studios here in the area for a few years before COVID, and it was under new ownership, and they were separating 2 of the brands and giving one its own storefront. And then I worked for a startup for a few years.
Yep.
And so I noticed, and the thing that has really stuck with me is, okay, if we build this foundation well, even though it might take a little longer on the front end, it sets you up to scale. It sets you up to grow faster and better because you're not always reacting. You're
Right.
able to be proactive on the front end.
Sure.
And so, for me, I've put myself through my own process this year too. What is my brand? Who is my target market? How do I get in front of them? What does a sales process look like? How do I shorten that sales cycle so it's not 3 or 4 months,
Right.
and really create offerings that are accessible to startups.
Sure.
That's the other thing too, is most of the people that I've worked with in the past couple of months, they're self-funded. They're bootstrapping it, and they're hoping to get that next level of seed funding. They're not there yet. And so making sure that it's accessible to them financially, because one of the other things I've noticed is, founders, most startups fail within the first 4 years. And I think oftentimes it's not necessarily because it's a bad product or service. It's that they haven't had the resources or access to the resources and opportunity to really be able to sell it and get the word out in a way that meets the needs of their target market.
Sure. Yeah, financing or getting, your company financed or bootstrapping, I mean, it's brutal. And for our listeners, one of the things to understand is when you're raising capital, it's like 3 tranches really well, 4 actually. And so it's like, first one is what can you do? Like, what can you bring? Like, how much money do you have at the table? I have $35. It's going to be hard. Then you go to your friends and family where you're not really required by government to do any kind of vetting. And then you go to what is called seed. And once you go to like the seed round, well, friends and family are part of the seed round, but once you go into looking for accredited investors, like there's some rules apply. Like they have to make $250,000 a year. They have to, if they're married, it's like $300,000 a year. They have to have $1 million in liquid, and so that makes it tricky to find those investors. And then typically when they're at that level, it's hard. It's hard for them to commit to investing because
Right.
they don't want to lose their money. I always have this joke that a millionaire never wants to become a millionaire twice. And so it's like really important that they hold on to their money. So, so that's interesting. What would you say? Because you being a female, and then on top of that, being a founder, there's a lot of hurdles, for minorities. It's really like the disparity between, a white male, so to speak,
Yeah.
getting funding versus a female or someone who is black or someone who is, Mexican, Asian, whatever. There's a big gap between the two.
Yeah.
And so how do you encourage someone who does come from that minority line that, how do you encourage them, and what kind of things do you help like point them in, which direction?
That's a really good question. So I think one of the things that's really important is finding a community of people that understand what you're going through. The client that I just brought on, she's Indian American. And so, that is and the Techstars that she's a part of, the accelerator she's a part of, is incredibly diverse, which has been really helpful for her because they understand a lot of the needs that diverse BIPOC founders might encounter that white founders don't
Right.
encounter. So I would say find a community of people that understand what you need. When you are looking for mentors and advisors, seek out people that have gone through some of those similar struggles.
Right.
The other thing is, at the end of the day, you have to do the work. Like you've gotta have a good product. You've got to have a good service that meets the needs of a specific target market. And at the end of the day, investors will invest and want to invest in something that is going to make them money on the return. And if you can prove that in data, the more data you have, the better, because they love to see that. So if you can really begin to prove it with data, that is a good, battle. That's a good way that you can fight that battle. Pitch competitions that are specific to BIPOC founders. I know Pharrell had one here, a couple of months ago, and A Black female founder won it.
That's awesome.
Which is great. And, again, so putting yourselves in those communities where people do understand the challenges that you're facing, and they really can offer some of that support to you. And the interesting thing about being a woman in corporate America is, the quote unquote only thing I have going against me is that I'm a woman. I'm still white. I'm still cis. I'm still straight. And so I have those things they're in my favor. But it still it's extra work being a woman in corporate America.
Sure.
I mean, I get hit on LinkedIn. I, have to, even when I speak to white C-suite, or, men that are higher up in business, it does take a little bit longer for me to get credibility in the
Sure.
way. And even when I speak in the same way that my male counterpart might, it's not received the same way. And so some of that is remembering just your own worth.
Yeah.
And say, nope, you know what? I know I belong here. I know what I have is valuable and it is worth, my voice matters. And you do have to learn how to tune out some of that. I actually just said this in the program last week, and I tell a lot of the founders that I work with, you have to find a way to separate your personal worth from your professional outcomes.
That's good.
Because your personal worth, it is because you are alive, you are here, you are worthy, period.
Right.
And it's hard as a founder because you pour everything into this thing that you've created. And so it feels like an extension of yourself. But to find a way to separate those two things are really valuable because it helps you kind of remain an objective observer of what's happening as opposed to taking it all too personally.
Yeah. So I so much that you just said there, and that definitely went down a very deep path. So we're going to try to lighten it up a little bit. But I will say, in my experience, I remember when my wife and we had an agency out of Yorktown and with Allstate, and Allstate reached out to us and said, hey, would your wife be interested in opening up her own agency? And because they really, at the time, they wanted more brick and mortars.
Mm-hmm.
And so we said, okay, you want us to scratch your back, you got to scratch our back. And we're like, we want to buy another one and merge it in. And so yada, yada. Anyways, I remember she got her agency, and I get a phone call about 3 months into her, starting the agency, and it was corporate, and they're calling me and they're asking me questions about our agency. And I was like, why are you talking to me?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, and I said, no, actually, I don't know. I said, you went to her, you said that she was, that she is, her worth was to open up the agency, that they found that she was talented enough and that she was way better than me as operating an insurance agency. And I said, I didn't understand why they were calling me, and I really put them on spot. And I said, here's my wife's number if you don't have it, and call her and ask her. I said, it's her agency.
Yeah.
And I remember from that moment on, it was like they knew to call her.
Yeah.
And it was really dumb that had to happen.
It is.
And it was super frustrating. And I think that may have been, from a sense of being naive or ignorant in the fact that I remember that was the first time that I saw that happen in real life.
Yeah.
And so that it was extremely frustrating. But I want to come off of that because some of the things that you said too, our listeners may not have picked up on. And you mentioned the word good. You want to have a good product that goes to service. You want to have something that's good. And I love that you're actually using the word good because so many founders think that it needs to be great. And they will nitpick and they'll dot their I's, cross their T's, and it's get that thing to market.
Yes.
If there's one thing I can impress upon someone is, the enemy of great is good enough. And get it to being good enough.
Yep.
Be the enemy of great. And then you work things out.
Yes.
And I was at 757 Startup Studios talking a couple weeks ago, and one of the things that I mentioned to founders, being creative is your most valuable asset, especially as a startup, as a founder. So when you think of starting a company, versus having a company that's been around for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is you're a jet ski, and that company's been around for 20 years as a cruise ship.
Yep.
And so when you ask that cruise ship to turn around, guess what? You need like 20 football fields.
Yes.
It's going to take a solid hour to turn that sucker around. Versus on a jet ski, you better buckle up and hold on because that thing, and you better have that disconnect on your wrist because you could slingshot yourself off of that thing. It turns so fast. And so I share with them like being creative. And one of the creative things that we did with Magazine Jukebox was I went out to businesses and I said, I'm going to pick 20 different segmented businesses. Some of them will be similar, but for the most part, I wanted different. And I said, and I took them basically a non-binding agreement. And I said, this is the platform that we've designed or that we're designing. If we hit these steps and it's as I'm displaying to you, would you be interested in buying it? Would you commit to buying the service for a year?
Yeah.
And so then I took those 20, all 20 signed up. And so then I was able to take that to investors and say, hey, look, I don't have real cash in hand, but I have 20 businesses that said that they're interested. I have an MVP of my product that's good enough. I need to go to market. I need some help. And that was what I used to help. And so again, going back to what's, when you're a founder, the most important thing is being good.
Yeah.
And being able to pivot and being able to be agile and listen. We have 2 ears, 1 mouth.
Oh my
listen more than we talk, So all those things are super important. So I really appreciate you saying that because that's really important for them to know that.
One of the things I tell people all the time too is you're writing chapter 1. And with the thing I hear from founders, in fact, I was just on a call last week with 2 guys. They built a website kind of platform, and they were like, if we get 100 million users, then we'll have $1 billion to do towards it. And I was like, great, but we need to get 100 really good users right now, right? So you're writing chapter 1. Like even Netflix, their chapter 1 was sending DVDs. Now they're chapter 10. They've totally changed the streaming service game, right? Like they revolutionized it, and now it's so sticky. I gotta now pay more to be, because they just, but that's that they're on chapter 15,
right? And
they've evolved, and they have listened to their clients, and they have, been able to make pricing changes and all stuff. But they started at even TikTok had a chapter 1, which was Musically, and so remembering that it doesn't all have to be done or figured out now. In fact, it can't be until you get people using your product or service, because you have to have that client feedback. And then taking advantage of the people that are using it and getting their feedback and listening to them and making sure that, when you hear one person say it, it's a complaint. When you hear 2 people say it, perk your ears up. When you start hearing 3 or 4 people say it, now we're beginning to get a critical mass and say, okay, maybe here's where we need to pivot. But you've got to get users in there. Yeah, I mean, there's no way around it.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it's, man, it just every time I talk to you, Amber, it just kind of like throws me back to when we first started. And, it really is incredible, all the hurdles that you have to step over and you have to get over, and then you have these red lines, and you have to be comfortable with going past your red line, and you got to have this, sense of risk, but you still manage that risk while you are, especially like in my case or your case, we have a family too, so we still got to eat,
right?
We still have to provide, and that's really hard for founders. I tell you, hey, if you have a great idea and you're like 18, go just run as fast as you can. Just go at it as fast as you can, because when you have children, you get married, like everything changes. And you're not in business by yourself, you're in business with your spouse. And then if you're in business with your spouse and that spouse may not be all on board, then you're dealing with multiple fronts of I told you so's. And you try not to go down that. So luckily for me, my bride, she's pretty incredible, so super huge supporter, and but she does check me a lot on being a dummy. So okay, so Amber, like, so now as you're doing this, like, what would you say is an ideal client for you? Like, who's someone, if our listeners are just getting started in business or thinking about starting business, or maybe they're a couple years in and looking for some redirection or some help, like, talk to me about who would be a perfect client for you right now.
That's another great question. So I have a couple of areas where I come in. So first is in a couple of different offerings. So like I said earlier, making sure it's financially accessible for people that are bootstrapping or, early phases. So I have some ideation offerings that are maybe one day, maybe a few hours where, again, it's like, I've got all these ideas in my head, or, I'm so close to this thing, I can't see the forest for the trees, and I just need someone to help pull some of these things out of me and help me make sense of it and give me some clarity. So that's one option. Second is like the client I just brought on. Maybe you're in an accelerator. Maybe you're you've got an MVP, you maybe have some users, but the reality is you don't have your sales operations built out. And by sales operations, I mean, how are you tracking your clients? Do you know who your target markets are? Do you know how to get in front of them? I do a lot with the client journey. So where are they becoming aware of you? How are we getting them to land, long enough on your website or wherever they would make a purchase to either book a call or make the purchase? Where are they falling off? So we're really streamlining that sales process.
Right.
And then what are we doing in terms of customer experience to keep them there so you don't
Yeah.
have a lot of turnover? So that would be one. And my biggest goal with that is to set up founders to then be able to bring someone on full time. So I'm not going to be, your full time, sales director, but I'm going to get you so ready so whenever you bring someone on, and I can even help you find the right person, they're off and running. Like,
Right.
you don't have to worry about, is the CRM figured out? Like, do we know who we're going after? All that's done. So they're really ready to hit the ground running. And then the third is if you are a more established business and you maybe are wanting to build out a new vertical or, are just feeling like your sales process is not, you kind of feel like you're dumping money into these marketing tools or lead generation tools and it's not giving you the return on investment that you want, I'll come in and, we can fix that too.
Yeah, I'm like anti pay-per-clicks.
Yeah.
Yeah. We try to do everything here, and we've been fairly successful with Magazine Jukebox, but we try to do everything organically.
Yes.
That's like
Yep.
super important. And
Yep.
my goal is to do it.
Right.
And to be able to down the road, when I go, if I ever invited as a speaker, I would go and share with that you can do it organically.
Yes.
There are tools available to make things
Absolutely.
happen that you don't have to be
Absolutely.
spending $5,000 a month just to get worthless
Totally.
clicks. And
Yeah.
it's so arbitrary that you have no idea like who really clicked, who was it. You don't,
Totally.
and so it's like they can put these chat GPT things on it and
Yep.
just like start clicking for you.
Yep.
So it's anyways, I
No,
like
agree.
organic. Organic's good.
No, I'm with you. We had the last startup I worked for. They had hired a lead gen company, and I call it the noise. Like I had a ton of activity on my calendar. I was having a ton of sales calls, but none of them were qualified.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of noise. And so, doing it organically, building your network, understanding how to use that circle of influence that you have, like all that kind of stuff is what we do. So it is organic.
Yeah, super important. Well, Amber, like you and I, every time we do this show, I can go on and on forever. What's the best way for people to reach you? And I know LinkedIn is a big one. You and I both are very active on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and I know your LinkedIn site is linkedin.com/IN for LinkedIn /Amber-Hamilton.
Yes.
So for those of you listening, we'll also put that out there. So it'll be on our site, and we'll also make sure that it's tagged here. But and then as your website goes live, then we'll be able to go back and tag that for you. So we're excited for that.
Yeah.
So any parting thoughts here about? Or you know what? Actually, before we do that, I'm gonna prolong this podcast just for a few minutes. Why be a boss? Why be an entrepreneur? Why does Amber want to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, gosh, that's a great question. So I got really tired of building other people's dreams for them. I got really tired of spending a lot, all of my days building the dream of somebody else. And not that their dream didn't matter, not that it wasn't worth it, but I have 4 boys. I'm a single mom, and as I looked at what I wanted to create for them, I just didn't have the same opportunity, both in flexibility of time, like control over my time, and also doing work that I genuinely loved because it matters to me. You know, I really wanted them to be able to see me do something that matters and show them that that's an option for them. You know,
Right.
so, and a lot of it's my own value system too. You know, I see the opportunity that startups can make and the impact they can make economically and in communities around the country and around the world that huge corporations just can't do, and the opportunity they can bring to local communities. And so I wanted to run after that.
Yeah. Well, rocket launch, right?
Yeah.
Like rocket launch and change the world.
Yeah.
And as a female founder, I think that's super impressive. So
Thank you.
keep going, keep
Thanks.
doing. But unfortunately for you, it's our thing that we like to call pick your poison.
I'm here for it.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right. Might be good, might be bad. Remember, if it's inappropriate, I'll toss it. So, but if it's appropriate, that's all you get.
I don't know. I usually toe the line right in between
That's-
appropriate and inappropriate.
That's right. That's the Amber that we know.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Amber, here you go.
Yep.
Which would you rather? Have a little bit of water permanently trapped in your ear. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
that would
that's
be
the
horrible. Oh my
worst.
gosh. Or have a piece of broccoli permanently stuck in between your two front teeth.
Ah,
Oh man, that's
Oh, no,
miserable.
that's-
Either one of those is bad.
gosh.
I mean, how do you even say something to someone? Like, I know it's there.
I know it's just
I know,
gonna
sir.
be
Sorry,
like,
it ain't
this is
coming
how
out.
I look now.
Yeah, this is
my look.
me.
Oh gosh. I mean, my vanity probably is gonna go water in the air.
Oh my gosh.
As annoying as that would be.
I have
don't-
like horrible earaches, so there's like
Oh,
no
yeah.
way I could do that. I
Yeah.
have to go with broccoli in the teeth. All right. All right, so this one's pretty good. Okay, I think I know the answer to this one for you.
Mm-hmm.
Fight a kangaroo with your bare hands, and they're beasts.
Yeah.
Or dress like you did in middle school for the rest of your life.
Dress like I'm in middle school. No question. No, I mean, yeah.
Oh man,
Get some No Fear T-shirts.
that's
Did
awesome.
you ever wear No Fear
Oh my
T-shirts?
gosh, those, no fear.
Yeah.
What
Peace
were those?
Frogs. I'm from Baltimore. Peace Frogs was really
What-
big. And
Janko.
Janko.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember all that. Quicksilver.
I mean,
that
it's kind
was-
of back in style now anyway, so.
It is true. It is true. All right. Well, Amber Hamilton, you have been an awesome guest.
Thanks so much for
and
having me, Scott.
Appreciate. Yes, absolutely. And I'm excited. Hey, we'll check in with you maybe at the end of this year and see
Yeah.
how things are going,
Absolutely.
and get you on here. I think I've been on. There's another podcast I was on like 3 times,
Uh-huh.
and I'm going for 4 by December,
Nice.
so that way I could be their first guest
Yes.
4 times. So
That's awesome.
We'll see. Maybe if I like them, we'll see how that goes. But hey, thank you very much. Thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you, Magazine Jukebox. And until next time, we'll see you later.